So welcome to our Sunday morning conversation as we study the correspondence course created by Unity, the leadership of Unity many years ago, over a century ago. And we are continuing our look at the chapter on prosperity, which is as I was reviewing it, it's a pretty lengthy one. So on the other hand, creating a prosperity consciousness is worth it, in my opinion. So let's take a moment to settle in. Welcome, everybody. I didn't say hi to Diane and Veldon. I'm sorry, Kevin. Welcome, Leo.
Martha. Welcome,
Martha. Sandy. Just want to acknowledge everybody who's here. Lillian. And settle in. And in a second, I'll put the daily word up on the screen and be a way to introduce ourselves or get ourselves into the work. And here it comes. So hopefully the technology works. You never know. Who would be willing to? There's a couple of people who want to get in here. Let me let Gail and Della in. So again, welcome everybody. We're going to read the daily word. Who would be willing to read the daily word for us?
I will.
I'd like to. Oh, okay.
Oh, who said I would like to?
I did.
You? Okay, go ahead.
My sister.
Little sis.
All right. Well, I did, and this is a perfect word today because Ralph and I celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary yesterday.
Oh.
And some days you cherish.
Yep.
Some days
not so much.
Not so much. Thank you for that. Cherish. I cherish opportunities to share the love of God. Sunday, May 18th. It isn't the price of something that determines its value. It is how much it is cherished. It's not how something looks or what it costs that makes it beautiful. It's the love and wonder I feel that helps me cherish it. Just like the gifts I give, I imbue my relationships with love. I cherish those for whom I care deeply, and I want them to feel cherished by me. I hold the intention for love and connection that is at the very heart of my every exchange. Just as I feel cherished as the divine being, I share the love of God through my kind and considerate acts. At the heart of every kindness I extend is the prayer that those I serve will feel cherished, not only by me, but by God. And from Thessalonians 2:8, so deeply do we care for you that we are determined to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own selves, because you have become very dear to us. Thank you, God.
Thank you, Claudia. So today's daily word, I cherish opportunities to share the love of God. Let's say that together. I cherish opportunities to share the love of God. I like that in the quotation from Thessalonians, there's an implied equivalence between the gospel of God and ourselves. And since in the Unity we believe there's only one thing happening, God the good omnipotent, that makes sense. And it's also the foundation of our prosperity teaching. And this week we're starting on paragraph 23 under the topic of prosperity and work. Now this paragraph is probably the longest one I've seen in all of the correspondence course. So I think what we'll do is we'll read about down to here and stop and then we'll pick it up. We'll read that far and then see if there's anything we want to share, and then we'll pick up the rest of that paragraph. So who would be willing to read the first half of paragraph 23?
Janet will.
Okay, Janet, go for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
What is the true object of all work? One should not think that the world owes him a living, that he should not work. Such a one needs to come into a true understanding of work and of life itself. Jesus said, "My Father worketh even until now, and I work." And that's John 5:17. Life is, we are living now. God gave unto us eternal life. 1 John 5:11. How much one is living depends upon how conscious he is of his inherent abilities and powers and the purpose of his work activity. All activity is work. God created the universe out of his own substance, and man forms his world out of the substance that is within him. The greater work is in the mind, and the work of the hand follows the work of the mind. By work of the hand, we mean the whole outer activity. Man's chief work is to glorify God in all that he thinks, says, and does. That's where we want to stop, right, Marty?
Yeah, let's stop there, and thank you, Janet. Let's stop there and see if there's any thoughts about work.
And do you want note one?
Oh, sure. Yes,
um,
yes. Thank you.
God created the universe out of his own substance, and man forms his world out of the substance that is within him. Another reference to, quote, primal and, quote, secondary cause. See paragraph 5 and paragraph 17, footnote 4.
For those of you who like to do that kind of thing.
Not so much.
Any reflections on what we've read so far?
Well, I have one. My book group is reading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's a pretty classic book, and it was one that he wrote about his experiences in the concentration camps. He was in 3 of them, and Auschwitz was the last one. And so he says that there's 3 purposes for our life, the meaning of our life. And the first is to have meaningful work, to do something meaningful. The second is to care for someone in a deep and meaningful way. And the third is to overcome to overcome with meaning great adversity in your life. And I think that spoke to, the challenges he faced in the concentration camps. But the first 2 are really in alignment, I think, with what we talk about in unity. And the first one, which is to have meaningful work, kind of really aligns with this paragraph, which is what made me think of it.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got one that's not like Claudia's teaching something. It's just my story. But it's so interesting that this is the reading, because it's absolutely, I think, connected in some way. It started last week when we were reading about, one of the footnotes was about anxiety, about supply. And I think it's where it referenced, somehow I found a chapter called Trusting and Resting in the Emily Cady book, How I Use Truth. And as I read through that and then read it again, and then I had disasters on Sunday, on Mother's Day, disasters on Monday because of my wrong thinking. But it's the wrong thinking that's gone on for 8 years. So I've only been guessing that the weeks I've been coming here and the other two groups I'm in during the week, that something has worked in me to just shift and change what I think God wants from me. And I'm in a 12-step group where we read the Serenity Prayer all the time. And the second line is about having the courage to change the things we can. And so since I got sick 8 years ago, I have held on to that statement. I have pushed myself. I have tried so many things that were inappropriate, too much, too hard, but I didn't recognize it at the time. I felt I can do this. I can do it. And I did. I just was very, I've come thinking about it this week. I decided that my soul is very a calm, helpful soul. My personality is hysterical. And I can take a situation and just blow it right out of the water. And me being sick was not something I was prepared to accept or understand. And I prayed all the time, but I would say, okay, God, I've got this and this and this I need to do today. I need to do these things. And 8 years of this hard driving stuff for someone who's got a nervous system disorder has clearly made me not get well. And I came to the conclusion that I had given you guys the story about me wanting to drive and me trying to drive to get to this big vacation I planned. And the heavens opened up and said, cancel, cancel, stop this about driving the car, stop this about you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I did it. I canceled. And when I did the call and the email, I could feel myself like lifting up inside. And I heard whatever we call it, that voice saying, you let me tell you what you need to do next. You are in a waiting, holding mode until you get some marching orders from me. I think that's my substance telling me,
Ow.
cut the crap. And I have been 2 days, watched some movies. I'm reading a book that's not spiritual. It's about Edith Wharton's biography. I haven't felt shame or guilt or I'm not enough. I have felt, no, I'm following my higher power, my substance's orders to cut the crap and slow down and stop trying to save the world. And it's transformative. And Claudia was so sweet when we started, and she said, oh, you look nice. And I thought, I feel better. In 48 hours, I feel better because I'm not deciding what my work is, what the work needs to be. So that's that. And
Bravo.
Thank you.
Sounds like you let go and let God.
yes, and I always thought that's what I was doing, except it was always God according to Janet. And so
Sounds like it was the begging prayer too.
this is the real deal of like, just wait. And that whole chapter in the Emily Cady book is because she talks about suppressed anxiety, I think, or it's something about anxiety isn't just, a whole lot of stuff. You can think you're calm, but you're really very anxious. And I think that's probably been part of what was going on here. It'll be revealed. I don't have to figure it out.
Thanks, Janet. Anything else on this first part before we move on? So who would pick up where Janet left off? Or Janet, would you be willing to pick up where you left off?
I can, but I'm sure someone else here wants to read.
Right? Yeah.
I'll read.
Okay.
Thanks, Stella.
Then the work of the mind should be to bring forth spiritual powers increasingly, to bring into expression the true riches of divine mind, which are ideas of abundant life, abundant joy, abundant wisdom, abundant love, abundant prosperity. When one comes into the consciousness that every word, every act he performs is really a part of himself, his expression, and that he is either giving forth a slovenly, unlovely, imperfect individually, or a beautiful, perfected type of being from the substance that is within him. He will then seek for the ideal that is within his seemingly menial tasks, that he may bring forth the perfection that will glorify God and be an enjoyment to himself and to all. He will have a true understanding of work, and he will be living life, quote, more abundantly. Every thought molds the fertile substance of mind. You work, 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 even at your laziest moments, for your thoughts are the tools that fashion your life. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return, or come into the understanding of what you are and how to use the mind substance within. You bring and within you and bring forth the likeness of him in whose image you were created. As Angela Morgan so aptly puts in her poem, work. Thank God for the might of it, the ardor, the urge, the delight of it. Work that springs from the heart's desire, settling the brain and the soul on fire. Oh, what is so good as the heat of it? And what is so glad as the beat of it? And what is so kind as the stern command? Challenging brain and heart and hand. Thank God for a world where none may shirk. Thank God for the splendor of work. Shall I keep going?
Would you just maybe could you read the note?
Yep. This is in reference to use the mind substance within. How to use the mind substance within you, a unique metaphysical expression.
Thanks, Della. There's a few thoughts or ideas in this reading.
I really have difficulties around this work thing. I don't feel I tend to be productive or busy enough. And so I'm pretty good at judging myself on that and being judgmental. Although I think when I was working in a day job, I wasn't always productive, but I was showing up at work every day and working. So it's interesting to grow through retirement and find meaningful activities that I guess we define in our vocabulary as work. It's an interesting progression and challenge. It's curious.
I have a question for the whole group based on what I heard Claudia say. How many other people in the group have a mind that continuously criticizes and judges yourself? Okay, so there's a handful of us.
And the rest are lying.
Or they're not paying attention. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have someone here that tells me whether I'm doing good or bad.
Oh,
So it's
you
a
have your
double.
own
It's a
Jiminy
double
Cricket,
whammy,
Diane.
Sheldon.
I wonder if it's our culture, because when I observe other cultures or when I visit other cultures, I don't know people well enough to know, but you observe people sitting in cafes, drinking little cups of coffee, or it just, they don't seem to be as those damn Puritans, damn it, it's like,
Good question. What struck me in this part of this paragraph is the notion of watching our thoughts as work. Then the work of the mind should be left to bring forth spiritual powers increasingly to bring into expression the true riches of divine mind, which are ideas of abundant life, joy, wisdom, love, prosperity. When one comes into the consciousness that every word, every act we perform is really a part of ourselves, and that we are either giving forth a slovenly, unlovely, imperfect individuality, or a beautiful, perfected type of being from the substance within, we'll seek for the ideal that is within our seemingly menial tasks, that we may bring forth the perfection that will glorify God and be to an enjoyment to ourselves and all. And for years, since I first encountered unity 25 years ago, I found it a real challenge to pay attention to my thoughts, to learn denials and affirmations, because I wasn't used to it. I'd spent the first part of my life, the first 30, 40, 50 years of my life, not paying any attention to my words, my thoughts, or if I paid attention to them, there was just to acquiesce in the inner beatings and inner self-violence, or the inner anxiety, as Janet was pointing out. So for me, I think that what we're being asked to consider here in this paragraph is the joy that comes from paying attention to our thoughts, and in that paying attention, choose whether we'd like to transform them from a slovenly, unlovingly, imperfect individuality into a beautiful, perfected type of being. And I think that's partly what happened in the story that Janet shared with us a few minutes ago.
And it's like pulling the covers back on the subconscious mind and,
Yeah.
And looking at it. And you shouldn't allow, and you probably wouldn't allow someone to say those things to you about you, or you wouldn't say those things to a good friend. And yet somehow your subconscious mind, if left untrained or unrevealed, gets away with saying all sorts of things that are not healthy or acceptable.
Yeah, and so the work is to pay attention first, and then choose secondly.
When I noticed about learning about what negative thoughts do, or other people's negative comments, I said, oh, he's doing this or he's doing that, and thinking or not noticing mine. But boy, when you start noticing your mind, your own, it really helps.
Yeah, because it turns out each and every one of us share in common the fact that we're human beings.
And also, it seems just common that when somebody tells you some bad thing, then you got to match it, and tell your bad thing, negative thought. Now I've learned to just listen to their negative story and not respond in that way.
I wonder if you didn't just give us a good definition of gossip.
Well, it's like when somebody's saying, oh, I have this bad hip or blah, 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 and I can't do this. And they go on for 10 minutes. And I think, well, you're going to keep having that bad hip. But I don't say it.
I'm affirming bad hipness.
Bad hipness.
Any other thoughts about this section that we just read, or the poem, that nice poem about the joys of work?
I really liked that poem. I was trying to get a screenshot of that poem. I just put in the chat something that Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote 150 years ago. And I came across it because I did a celebration of life yesterday for a friend of mine. But I thought these were beautiful words and in alignment with what we're talking about being watchful of the subconscious mind and what it says, and being mindful of what we say to ourselves and to others.
Would you be willing to read that, because people watching the video may not be able to? I don't know that we can bring that up for the.
Sure. Well, I put it in the
Party.
chat, but it says, kind hearts are the gardens, kind thoughts are the roots, kind words are the flowers, kind deeds are the fruits. Take care of your garden and keep out the weeds. Fill it with sunshine, kind words, and kind deeds. So I think metaphysically, he's talking about your conscious and subconscious mind and your life. But I really was moved by this poem about kind of this particular person I was reading it for was this kind of individual. So it was wonderful to find these words for him.
Well, I also think that those words, or the poem is in alignment with the poem that we read in this section, because it's about that takes work.
Mm-hmm. Takes mindfulness.
Exactly. And mindfulness, again, I don't know if it's our culture. I suspect it's just a human thing. Mindfulness takes work. At least for me. Again, I'll just own that.
Oh, we're right here with you. You're not alone.
I didn't think so.
I think it's interesting with friends. It's easy to listen to them talk about negative things, or to be patient and present for whatever they need. Where I find it a little bit more challenging is either with my husband or with people I see on a daily basis, where kind of the pattern of their perspective or something, I've been around for 40 years. And it's like, sometimes I'm not as patient as I should be.
Well, you're not the only one, Della. Sometimes I think, I really should treat Ralph as well as I treat my best friends. I should really be as patient with
But
him.
I wonder how much of that impatience is essentially a projection of our lack of patience with ourselves, because we've been around ourselves even longer.
Mhm.
No, when I got irritated with my husband, it wasn't me I was irritated with. It was Craig. Craig. And he would say, "What?" I said, "You know." So, yeah, I know. He'd say, "All right." Because he was doing it again. Yeah.
So what do? You just live with it?
Yep. Because they are who they are. And you live with somebody or closely, you rub against them, you rub against all of the pieces. With somebody that you don't know so well, you don't get that close to. You don't, they maybe hide, and you maybe hide, but the people who you love and who are right next to you, your kids, your husband, your spouse, your big sister, your little sister, all of which I have. I know them so well, and I know that sometimes when they're saying things that are not who they really are, not the whole person that I know that they are. It's like, why are you spending your time talking about that or thinking about that when you have so much more that I know you have, because I know you really well. So that's when I would say then, Craig, get off it.
Well, Martha, I love what you said, and I'm just gonna, in my mind, I just flipped the word from you rub against them to you grow against them, or you grow with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that speaks to Della's point of why we can let, friends kind of go on, because they're not a reflection of who we are, and we're not a reflection of who they are. But somehow we get bound up in, the sister, the kid, or the spouse being, reflections and of who we are. for what we are. Yeah, it's interesting.
I would say that I've stopped being politically correct, and I don't think that's a good thing. But I also do think that it's helped me to say to people that I've known for years who are whining or whatever, and I say, my God, you sound so negative. What is there about this? Can you turn this around in some way? What is something good you could tell me about what you just said? And I'm losing them. I'm losing them because people want to be able to call you up and vent. And I've been told by people that have not appreciated being told they were negative. A friend, Janet, is supposed to be someone that'll just listen to you. And then I'll say, well, then I don't fit the definition because when you're negative, it makes me start to feel negative about things about myself. I need to talk about with people that are positive and affirming and all this thing you taught me about denial and all this stuff. And I really what's interesting is that I now have language for it where from coming to these groups with Truth Unity, where I didn't have it before. I kind of knew and I knew what I felt, but I didn't really know how to say it. So now I do better. I better know how to say it. And I really don't have any feeling of loss that on the negative ones don't want to call me. It's okay. Call someone else that's a good friend who'll listen to you. And I don't know.
You know, neurological science is showing now that that it's healthy to reframe, and that's what you're asking them to do. When you said, for God's sake, can't you think of something positive? It's like now neuroscience is saying, take the situation and reframe it to the positive. And I just read something today that said, instead of taking a situation going, oh my God, what now? Reframe it to say, what if? And that curiosity is reprogramming the brain and also the neural pathways to keep our brain from deteriorating. And that's a good thing. So you're doing them a favor, Janet. Just say, if you really want them around, say, I'm helping you out. Reframe this to the positive.
It keeps us open.
Pardon?
To reframe it into the positive keeps us open, not closed.
It does. It
Yes.
does. It keeps us looking for opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like-
but I can't help but wonder if there might be a more skillful way to say those things than you're being negative.
Well, that's why I said it, because I don't what I know it to be is that I know if I wait and let my soul speak, it's going to be sweet and kind and helpful. If I let my personality speak, it's going to be way more snappy and way more, snap out of it. I don't like the person I've become, particularly as I've aged, because I just feel like a lack of empathy and I feel like I've gone through a lot and I've been okay, and I don't like bore people to death with my tales of woe. And it's that judgmental thing of I'm trying really hard to like manage a difficult situation. Why can't you? Why are you like allowing yourself to wallow in all the things about this that are hard? And I just feel in my heart and in my soul, I want to say something that's going to help the person turn it around. But it often doesn't come out like that because I'm just whatever.
Know
And-
Yeah,
thyself,
well,
huh?
it's a skill. We have to learn. We don't have to do anything.
Skill.
We can learn skills. So, for example, when I hear somebody saying something like that, I could just go, "Well, that's an interesting way of saying it. I wonder if there's another way we could say that."
That's good.
And
Yeah,
just
I
see-
like that. Put it
see
write
what
that
happens.
down.
Yes.
Janet, you remind me of that Marianne Engelbert card with the young gal caricature with her hands on her hips, looking at somebody saying, "Snap out of it." It's like,
Oh, Claudia, that was on a mug back 20 years ago, and I gave
yeah,
them
well,
out
that's what you remind me
everywhere.
of.
Everybody got one. I bought them by the case full in a store, and anyone that I found a little bit, I put little flowers in it or something cute. And then I'd say, oh, I got you a little present. And I have one. I could go get up on my feet and bring it over to the camera. I have one. And I
Janet,
look at that and tell myself, Janet, snap out of it.
you
And
have
the other
put that
one,
in your
Cher did
subconscious
that.
mind.
Remember that movie, Moonstruck? And Cher smacks him across the face and says, snap out of it. And I love it. I think, oh, I wish I could go around the world slapping people in the face and telling them to snap out of it. But it
Okay,
comes
Marty,
from,
now it's time for you to say, I wonder if there's another way to say that.
I know. And maybe now if I feel better, I'll be more kind. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because would you be willing to consider that snap out of it is an invitation to an act of denial that needs an affirmation to follow it up? Because snap out of it is opening a space for something else, but the something else also needs to be said.
I like
Oh,
that.
Marty, you're so smart. Oh,
Oh, God.
And what do you suggest, Marty?
Well, it's all situational dependent. So what's going on with you or the person in the moment? It's like I've come to appreciate that complaining. This goes to what Lillian was saying a few minutes ago. Complaining is almost always a cover for something that's not being said. So I'm complaining about my hip or whatever. It's really a cover up for I'm scared shitless that I'm suffering from something that doesn't seem to be curable or isn't getting better. And so if we could again, this is work. This is what I love about this paragraph or this section. Takes work. It takes work to listen to what first of all, I have to listen to myself and then what other people are really saying as opposed to the words that people are using. We're trying to convey something. A complaint is usually trying to convey something that the words are not signifying. There's something else going on. So if I can listen to the something else and then reply to that or communicate with that, then I have the opportunity to to offer something different. This or something better is a great unity line.
Right.
So that just takes skill and it all starts at home. It starts in our own inner consciousness. That's again the work. Again, what does he say here about we can create something slovenly and unlovely inside, or we can create something that is beautiful, perfected type of being. And each one of us is the laboratory for that work. I can't do that work in your head. I can only do that in mine.
I like what you said there, though, Marty, that, that complaining about your hip is signifying something deeper. And it made me think about the Course in Miracles, where they said that there's only two emotions, love and fear. And if you're not acting out of love, you're acting out of fear. And so that does speak to that, where somebody's complaining about, or if I'm complaining about something, it's like there's fear there. Either I don't want change, or I'm fearful of what's going to come, or I'm fearful about, my health or my well-being. But it's a good, I like snap out of it. Snap out of it. We can do better. Snap out of it, keep looking or something.
Snap out of it. What do you want instead?
Yeah. You have choice.
Exactly.
Well, you all are talking to some deep people, though, I think, because some of the people I talk to, if I came back with what Marty just said, they'd say, What? What are you talking about? People that are not introspective and people that are not interested. I'm always interested in what my subconscious is feeding me. I know it feeds me a lot of crazy stuff. And I have to say, this is not me. This is not coming from me. This is something that's in there from the old days. I believe everything that happens from 0 to 10 gives you a body of knowledge in your subconscious that is from a kid's point of view. And if it's in a difficult situation, it's a lot of distorted thinking and very quick to rise up there. And since I started, I'd say it's been about 20 years of reading Myrtle and Emily. And I try to talk to that piece of me that's carrying distorted thinking and odd ideas that at one time appeared to be true. And then not only are they not true, but they're still not gone. I still have it as a reaction to something. And I say, no, that's not even thinkable. It's having really wise, insightful friends that you can call up and make a statement like that to try to help them. I I could count them on half a hand. A lot of the wise people that I really loved have died, and they're in spirit. And I think, okay, you either have to find some new wise ones, or you're going to have to figure it out for yourself, using God to lead you to what you need to know. And that's how God got me to this. I think this is my teacher, to take the place of the friends that used to be out ahead of me and be able to say, did you hear what you just said? My friend Nancy was take no prisoners. Nancy was a tough old girl. And she'd say, Janet, did you hear what you just said? And I'll say, well, I think it's true. And she'd say, well, it's not kind. And she's dead. So I hear her voice in my head, but not with the new material. It's old stuff. And that's why I really value this group, because everything people say is so rich.
Well, let's
Channel Nancy.
You're right.
yeah.
Can I
She
add
was
one thing?
she was mean. Yeah.
I remember at the beginning of this in January, Marty, and you've said it more than once. You use the phrase "life happens for me, not to me," and that could be one way to comment to your friends about getting them out of the zone about being victims of their own circumstances.
So say it again, Della.
Life happens for me, not to me.
It's good. That's a good one.
It's
And
Marty.
again, one of the ways I've learned to do that kind of thing is just to say it, as I said, I think I said it a few minutes ago, to say to someone, well, what if it's this way? What if it's life happens for me and not to me? To offer just as something to consider, not like life happens to, it's like this.
A gentle approach.
Yeah, well, because
Okay.
I'm not in charge of what anybody else thinks. I have a hard enough time doing the work of paying attention to my own thoughts.
Right.
Well, let's see if we can finish 24 and 25 and see if that provides us more insight into this topic, this very rich topic about prosperity and work. Notice nobody talked about career work. This is kind of cool. Who would be willing to read the next two paragraphs, 24 and 25?
I will.
Thanks, Lillian.
I don't see it on my screen though. Let's see.
It's over there, Lil. It's on the second column. Oh, here you go.
24.
Yeah.
The true object of work is the expression of all of man's God-given faculties and powers and service to his fellow man. The race is a unit, and every man is under obligation to all men. This obligation is not an arbitrary matter fixed by some tyrannical God or by some unfeeling law. It is the obligation of love. Love is the law that unifies the race and adjusts all people in righteousness and establishes harmonious relations. Discords come from violation of the law of love. When men work for a living instead of for the purpose of expressing their powers in righteousness and rendering loving service to their fellow men, they interfere with the operation of divine law. Cooperation instead of competition is the secret of success, because cooperation fulfills the law of love. So under Which one is it? We're
3 and 4.
love is the law that unifies the race and adjusts all people in righteousness and establishes harmonious relations. Notice that righteousness, defined as a state of harmony established in consciousness, is not only an internal state, it is also, as used here, a state of social and interpersonal state. Competition, taking competition as a sign of success, counts only in the realm of worldly getting and competition beating. That is, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Let me see. Taking competition as a sign of success counts only in the realm of worldly getting and competition beating. That is where they make their mark. But in the realm of spiritual attainment, they are not needed, not a bit.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Lillian. Thoughts, reactions?
It occurs to me that it sort of doesn't matter what work you do in terms of a job. It's more about how you do it and how you are present with other people. But it does make retiring an interesting thing, because if you're used to being present with people in a job, suddenly that interaction isn't there.
Well,
Well,
it can,
so
but
you
it
don't
can be. But it can be. You know, I've been retired for 20 years, and I'm certainly not just sitting around contemplating my navel. I'm out there doing stuff, and I'm doing stuff that this paragraph 24 really speaks to me. I think that this is what I'm here for, to work at things that are love expressions and love nurturing. That's my goal. This is it.
Martha, no. However, Martha, your profession was in alignment, because I know Martha as an amazing educator, was in alignment with that paragraph. And
Yeah.
so your current Martha's an amazing volunteer and heads up AAUW in our community. So it's in so alignment in with your values and your principles all the way through. Some of us who retired from day jobs that weren't quite like that, there's a transition that I am aware of, Della, and I can understand why you're pondering it. So yeah.
Mm.
I'm wondering how much of this is about consciousness. So consciousness,
This. So
about how
these words, pardon?
I was just saying about consciousness about service is because I'm wondering if there isn't a way that contemplating my navel can also be of service.
Let us know.
Yeah, I'm having a hard one with that one too.
Yeah, I get that. And it's possible that it's about consciousness and not about the specific things being done.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time too.
Cool.
That's because we had the same parents, Lillian.
Oh,
Well, but this may also go back to the comment that Claudia, you made about culture. I mean, culture has a lot to do with what we think is right and wrong. And
What we think is
again, what we're
correct.
being invited to do in this work, thus I use the word work, is to think about things from a different perspective.
Well, one of the different perspectives for me in this particular paragraph is the sentence, the race, which I assume means the human race,
Right.
is a unit, and every person is under obligation to all people. See, and this is the kind of idea that creates the uncertainty that you expressed, Marty. Only you expressed it in positive terms about what I snarkily said, the contemplating my navel. I know that there's value in being still and absorbing. My husband was great at that. He was really, really good at that. It calmed him, and I learned how to do it somewhat from him. But this sentence says that it says to me that the contemplation, what would be the obligation to all people if it just stopped in the contemplation? It is the obligation of love. Just all people in righteousness and establishes harmonious relations. It just sounds like people alone aren't fulfilling this. It has to be in connection with other of us who are working toward this.
Well, the sentence before the one that Marty has highlighted is the powerful one in my mind, is the expression. That means action to me. Expression and all of man's God-given faculties and powers and service to his fellow countrymen. I mean, that's action in a supportive and kind way, as I read it.
So I think that no matter what work that you're doing to earn money, when we're doing our livelihood, somebody said to me, all honest work is noble. And that's the kind of idea that I get here. It doesn't matter whether you are in a service kind of profession like I was, or that my sisters are. How you do it and how you relate to people within your work environment and outside your work environment are part of your work. It's not just the product, the physical or product of your work, but it's the way you do it is also the product of your work.
Yeah, remember what we said over here. The greater work is in the mind, and the work of the hand follows the work of the mind.
Mind work is harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to do it all the time, not just from 8 to 5.
Yeah, and you don't get paid, you don't get a paycheck for it.
Today,
And you get nobody patting you on your back and saying, well done, because they don't even know what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Here's your bonus.
Yeah.
What was Leo going to say?
Today I read something from Maurice Nicole, and he is talking about the work of Gurdjieff and followers. And he's talking about inner consideration versus outer consideration. And he explains it like this. If you look at the world from within yourself, then you always look from your own value statements. And that's not the work that goes automatically. That's you. That's your person. And you defend that or not. But if you are encountering other people and you look at the situation from their point of view, that is hard work, because you have to leave your own considerations in a neutral zone and step over to the considerations of the other person. And that gives the whole situation a whole new perspective.
Wow.
And Pope Leo says that his goal is to build the bridges. And to your point, Leo, I guess you have a pope named after you now. To your point, that's exactly how he said you have to do it. You have to try to come from their perspective to see how you can get the bridge back to your perspective, because you're not going to get there if you just are in your perspective trying to build a bridge, because you don't understand what their perspective is that you're going to bridge over. So that's a really interesting comment. And thank you for explaining it, because I read it in the notes when you put it up and I thought, so that your explanation was very helpful.
You're welcome.
You know, this morning we've been dancing around an area, and if you look at all the things we've all talked about and consider that each one of these people our soul is dealing with their soul. And if you can accept the idea that we have eternal life and that each one of us comes, when we incarnate, comes into this life with things that we know that we want to work on to improve ourselves, to add energy to go to the next level of our development. That our job with each one of these people or these souls, is to greet that soul with love, and with that enables them to move on to the next thing. And I'm not sure I've got that said quite as well as I need to, but I think it points out where we've been dancing around this morning.
Maybe we can adapt the comment that Della noticed as other people happen for me, not to me.
Mhm.
I like that.
All right, my friends. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together.
Okay,
And,
well, I have a question. Marty.
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to understand this correspondence. So what we read basically is what Fillmore sent out the question, and then people would respond. And then he had his own template of what the answers were. Is that correct? Or did he send out the question and the answers? And then just one more thing. And then what Mark did, as Mark came in and highlighted and did the hyperlinks to the footnotes and to the extended readings, like there was an Ed Rabel reading or a Revealing Word reading, or etc. Is that how this is all set up?
I don't know the exact answer.
Oh, good, because I felt stupid asking that question.
No. So as you guys know, I've shared with it, and Leo's been part of this. Some of us have been doing this with Mark since September. And so what I've listened to Mark basically tell us is that these questions would be asked, like here on this one, you can see, what has faithfulness to do with demonstrating prosperity? So that was a question that was asked for people in this who read this unit, and they were supposed to answer the question. They didn't get the answers ahead of time. And somebody back in Unity, in fact, it wasn't even at the Village in those days, back on Tracy Avenue, would mark or grade these answers, and they would.
Okay, they got the unit. Let me kind of stop
Correct.
you there. The unit are the words that we're reading.
Right. There's these things that have numbers on the paragraphs.
Those are the units.
Text. Right.
So they received their correspondence course, and it came with the question, and then all
Right.
this verbiage, and then they were supposed to synthesize the question down and answer it based on what they had read.
Correct.
Is that correct? The readings.
Correct.
Okay, got it. All right.
And then the idea was you got one course or one lesson at a time, and you couldn't get the second lesson till you answered the questions correctly for the first one.
Correctly.
Yeah, well, what's the point of answering them incorrectly?
So I think if I understand you correctly, they might have said prosperity and faithfulness. They didn't have a question there, but they just had all the verbiage, 26, 27, 28. And then the question at the end of that is, what has faithfulness to do with demonstrating prosperity? And then
Right.
the people were supposed to draw from what they read and answer that question.
Right.
And that's what got
And the
graded.
questions were all listed at the end as opposed to the
Right.
way that Mark. So Mark
Right.
has put these questions in basically as a tickler to help us figure out where the answers would be if we were
Right.
getting this fresh.
Right. Got it.
And the footnotes are all post original. That's all stuff that Mark has put in.
Got it. Okay. That helps me to understand what was in the original correspondence course, what was the questions that they were asked, and then they basically were supposed to draw from the original words, verbiage, and give their own response.
It's
good.
it's kind of equivalent to the questions at the end of Lessons in Truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of idea as like you're supposed to read the text and then answer these questions from the text.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you
Sure,
for that.
you're welcome.
Well, Mark did a great job in illustrating this as well as, doing the links.
Yeah.
That's super.
Yeah, that's why, again, I invite everybody who would like to go deeper into this to go to the webpage, because follow the hyperlinks. And I don't know if any of you have done this, but if I go to Truth Unity, I can lose myself for a day.
Mhm.
Is that your work?
Just
So
yeah, that's my
so you
work.
count that for 8 hours of work?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's full of spiritual rewards and bonuses.
Well, I want to thank Leo for giving me a homework assignment, is trying to build a bridge when I talk with somebody.
Very
It's
good.
the work.
Very good. All right, so again, thanks everybody for joining us. Let's close by saying the prayer for protection together. The light,
light
of
of
surrounds
God
us.
surrounds
The
us.
love
The
of
love
God
of
enfolds
God
us.
enfolds us.
Holds us.
The
The
power
power
of
of God
protects us.
protects us.
Protects us.
And
The
the
presence of God
watches over
watches over us.
wherever we are.
Wherever we are,
God is.
God is.
And all
all
is well.
is well.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a good
prosperous
day.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
A bientôt. Tout à l'heure.
Sure.